Welcome back to our adaptation of Can't Go Home Again. Last episode, Mike inherited the house of his late boss, Frederick Fazman, but once he got there, he found this strange animatronic who may be connected to Frederick's son. What will happen now? Let's listen to the new episode and see.
Mike opened the door, and he was able to see the creature crying. Not just the sound of quiet sobs, but true physical crying. The purple marks on its face seemed to spill down in steady drops onto the floor. As it held one of the toys in its arms, both tight to its chest and away from the steady stream of tears, he was certain then that the creature was, indeed, human. Its hostility was gone, and the sorrow that replaced it left him uncertain of what to do next. He considered again his choice to stay, but his empathy emboldened him, and he made no motion to leave.
I'm sorry. He was a good man. A really good man. I miss him too. Trust me.
Mike wasn't sure how to approach the situation. Words helped, but he needed to do more. He leaned down next to the puppet slowly and very carefully tried to place a comforting hand on its back. The second his palm made contact, the puppet lunged towards him and buried its face into his chest, the tears drenching his shirt almost instantly. Still, Mike stayed silent. This was the puppet's moment to mourn, and it needed as much peace as he could give it. This would be its best chance to make peace with what had happened.
Sorry, let me just get that.
Mike! Oh, thank God. It's just me. I'm checking in, trying to make sure you're okay.
Well, I'm not dead, at least. Me and the puppet worked it out, I think. Frederick seemed to be taking care of it. I'm busy comforting it.
Okay. Call me back when you're available.
I got it.
The puppet refused to let go. They sat there for some time like that on the floor, Mike only sometimes daring to move to check the time on his phone, and after a time, not even then. The rivers of tears slowly dried, and eventually it released him from its grip. Mike stayed a few minutes longer, watching the puppet, making sure that he had indeed received some kind of unspoken permission to leave. He grabbed one of the plush toys from the floor and held it close, a motion that served as signal enough for Mike that it was time. The puppet did not react to his footsteps, nor did it make a sound as he closed the door shut behind him.
Mike? Are you free now?
Yes, I am. I want to know about this puppet thing. You say you encountered it. What can you tell me about it?
All I know is what I said before. It was this thing in the restaurant back in '87. It was a lot craftier than most of the other animatronics. We'd have tricks like wearing a Freddy mask to make them think we're one of them, but that never worked on the puppet. It's what made me start thinking that the animatronics might be more than robots. I don't have any idea where that thing came from or why it's special. I honestly thought it was scrapped. Why the hell would Frederick take it home?
Have you ever seen any of Frederick's kids? A connection one of them might have to this thing?
I never met any of them. By the time I met Frederick, there were no kids in sight. He mentioned them once or twice, though.
Could you do me a favor and look it up for me? And anything about the puppet?
Yeah, sure thing. I can try as soon as I finish up stuff here. It's a mess by the warehouse. Trash all over the place. Are you leaving the house soon?
I don't know. I'm not sure if the puppet wants me to stay or not. Here, meet me at the warehouse tomorrow. I'll drive over there.
Got it.
As Mike pondered what to do next, he realized that since this was Frederick's home, he probably had files stored here, documents to help him figure out what exactly was going on. His thoughts, though, were halted by a sudden surge of sound from somewhere else in the house.
Looks like it's time for an adventure!
Mike was startled by the sudden voice. He followed the sound, slowly stepping to the living room to find its source. In the room, the puppet was sitting on the floor in front of the television, holding one of its plushies closely. It was now playing back the Fredbear and Friends cartoon that he'd seen on the tapes before. Relief washed over Mike to know that there wouldn't suddenly be another wild animatronic to deal with tonight. But seeing there on the screen Fredbear's golden hues instead of Freddy's familiar brown gave Mike pause.
Is that Golden Freddy's real name, and I have been calling him something else this whole time?
It was the puppet's turn to be startled, as its head swung back in surprise to look at him. They both sat awkwardly there for a moment, eyes locked, waiting for the other to make the next move. When Mike made no further motion or comment, the puppet's head slowly drifted back towards the screen. Mike took the opportunity to back away slowly and return to the master bedroom. Entering into the room, hopefully alone this time, he began searching for something, anything, that could shed light on his current strange circumstances. Against the far wall was a wooden desk, and beside it was a gray metal filing cabinet. As far as likely places for company secrets went, at least in Mike's mind, it was a strong candidate. Mike opened one of the drawers and began scrolling through them.
Okay. Nothing on the puppet. Or Frederick's kids. Fredbear. This should be useful. And stuff on the old security guards.
Mike took the files that piqued his interest and splayed them out across the desk. None had any pictures to go by, but the summary of Fredbear seemed to describe Golden Freddy, listing his color, size, weight, and, for reasons Mike couldn't fathom, species, clarifying that Fredbear was indeed a bear.
Okay. Fredbear. Springlock suit. Due to not one, but two horrible accents, we are retiring the Fredbear animatronic. We will push Freddy as the new big lead. Freddy is already based on him anyways, so the change will not be too drastic.
Of all the words in the Freddy's corporate vocabulary, accident was not one of them. To see it used here made Mike raise an eyebrow. Whatever had happened, it was too much for them to ignore, at least internally. At the bottom of the page was a pair of signed initials WA, and a note that the suit would still be used without the supporting endoskeleton.
So that is why it was always limp. It would be nice if they could list more specifics in here. Never mind. What is there about old security guards?
Mike continued looking through the files when he suddenly saw a familiar face in a photo on one of the pages. A man by the name of Fritz Smith who, to his surprise, bore an uncanny resemblance to his friend Sam, some years younger. Below that he saw another image of a man buried in bandages. That is when Mike finally caught a feeling that he was being watched. Mike very steadily turned around, seeing the puppet at the room's entrance. He was startled, but forced himself to appear composed. With each encounter, he was able to read the puppet's motions more easily, and in that moment he felt no air of aggression, only the sense that it was demanding his attention for something. Mike stood from the desk and followed as it floated back across the hall and back to the television. Mike followed suit. The cartoon was still playing.
See, Bonnie? That's why trust is important.
Wow, you're right, Fredbear. Let's give it a try.
The puppet sat on the floor again. It seemed to want Mike to watch the show with it.
I don't know if I am staying the night or not. Just know that I have plans for the morning. Okay?
The puppet paused for a few moments before giving a slow nod. Mike appreciated the gesture, a genuine act of communication, one that no animatronic he had encountered before had ever given. Knowing he could reason with it gave him some comfort, at least enough to sit and watch a child's cartoon beside it. The show was pretty charming. The next episode was a special of some kind, an adaptation of The Pilgrim's Progress, but with the Fazbear cast in the role of the characters. The opening said it was in the loving memory of some woman named Marion, who really loved the book. Fredbear himself took the role of Christian. There were some changes to the plot he found peculiar.
I haven't read the book since I was a kid, but I don't remember the giant drill robot.
Mike's plan had been to watch a few more episodes before returning to his apartment, but it would be morning when he would finally realize that he had been too tired to survive even one. Though he had no memory of how he had gotten there, he found himself on the couch covered by a heavy blanket and a foxy plush tucked neatly under his arm. He looked to find a likely culprit for this, but found that the puppet was nowhere to be seen. What Mike heard, however, was the faint chimes of a music box in the other room. It was in all likelihood still asleep. Mike had already warned it of its departure, so he left it to rest, leaving the house at last and venturing to his car to meet Sam at the warehouse. When he arrived, he found his friend waiting for him outside.
Mike! Thank God. I was just waiting, wondering something happened.
Don't worry, I just slept really hard last night, Fritz.
We're on a last name basis now?
I was looking through the old files at Frederick's house. There was a picture of you with Fritz Smith. So, I'm hedging my bets that you either slightly changed your name, or Fritz died and you are some robot clone of him. Care to clarify?
Look, I didn't think we had it on the record, but yes, I changed my name.
Any particular reason why?
Well, when I was working there, it was around the time the missing children's incident happened. There were cops and reporters all around. I saw my name in the papers. I just decided it was best to give myself a new name and distance myself from it all.
And use your skills to come up with an impeccable alias, evidently.
Can we just... Here, I found some interesting stuff last night. Do you want to see?
Absolutely.
And so he followed his friend into the warehouse, ready to see what it was exactly that Fritz had found.